So, welcome to the Homeschooling Simplified channel. Today I have Kenny with me. Kenny, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kenneth Ashcraft. I'm a professional semi-truck driver. There's a lot of different things you can do in that field, but basically it means you're eating a lot of miles up over the highway.
First question we have is, does your job require high school, community college, technical college, or a 4-year or more degree?
There's no degrees required. I think if you decided to do it as an owner-operator, you'd be better off getting some sort of business degree or something like that, but only certification you really need is a commercial driver's license.
And how do you go about getting one of those?
There's a lot of different ways you can do it. There's the best way, in my opinion, is to study the book. It's a federal license. Study the book and then go through a course with somebody like Truck Drivers Institute or some school that actually teaches you the basics of driving. Because I mean, it's a 80,000-pound machine that has various implications. I mean, there's a lot to it. But go through a school. It's probably, give or take, $6,000. And if you go through a school, you'll usually wind up getting a job placement. They usually try to place you in a job, and those jobs will sometimes reimburse you your investment on your licensing.
Very
Also,
good.
there's some carriers, they call them mega carriers. I won't give any names, but there's companies that will sponsor you. They'll go ahead and train you, put you through their course, and get you all the information you need to get your education. You get your CDL and all those things, as long as you sign a contract saying you will stay with them at a set pay rate for two to 4 years.
Okay.
Overall, it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't mind the commitment of being tied to a company for 2 to 4 years at a certain pay rate.
What were your favorite classes?
As far as in high school, I was really big into history, geography, and economics. And those two classes, it's kind of a good background to have. Like I mentioned with the having a business degree or something like that, having some kind of business smarts, especially as an owner operator, will only benefit you. And plus geography, if you can read a map, that's also going to be in your benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Does your job change often? And if so, do you have to update your skills and knowledge along the way?
There's what they call federal hours of service. And basically what that entails is how many hours a day can a driver, drive. And those hours can vary. I mean, in Canada, for instance, they have hours that are at a certain longitude and latitude line. You can drive an amazing amount of hours. You can drive 10, 15, 20 hours a day, which is ridiculous, but they don't have an hour of service law just because of the fact that there's adverse conditions, weather, and things affecting how soon you can get to a location. And if you're out in a blizzard or something and you can't stop the semi, they want to give you that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, hours of service, basically, where they change, you have to be studied up on how they affect your job in particular.
And do you work for yourself or for someone else?
I currently work for a company called Valio. There's a lot of different carriers. The end goal is going to be having my own semi and trailer, and basically being a small business owner. And a lot of people that are getting into this field, that's what they're working towards. And it's not a lofty goal. It's very easy to attain once you get a few years under your belt and manage your finances. It's fairly easy to do.
And how many days a week do you work, and about how many hours?
Hours that I typically work, I personally work 4 days a week and I'm off 3 days. Now I work 4 12-hour days, so I get 48 hours in and then have a 3-day weekend. This isn't typical of the industry. I'm kind of a special case. I'm not an over-the-road driver. Over-the-road drivers, it's it varies. You're allowed to drive right now with the current hours of service that are in place. You can drive 14. You can be on duty 14 hours a day. Now, of that 14 hours, you can only drive 10 hours. And with some of the mega carriers, the bigger companies, they want you driving that semi 6 and 7 days a week. So you can figure 60 to 70 hours a week.
Wow. Wow. And is that typical of big carriers, that many hours?
Bigger carriers, they have, with the hours of service, some of them, there's what they call a 32-hour reset. You're allowed to go 10 hours a day. You're allowed 60 hours in a 7-day period. And if you hit that, they can give you 2 days off and reset you with a fresh clock. So some carriers will get you home on Friday late and then have you getting back on the road Sunday morning early, and you technically have 48 hours where you have been off the clock and had home time. But
Wow.
generally, with bigger carriers, you're looking at being over the road and in a semi, usually 2 to 3 weeks at a time.
Oh, goodness. Wow. I mean, if it fits someone's personality and it fits their lifestyle, that's probably like traveling and things like that. They probably love it.
That was what was appealing to me. I enjoy traveling. I like driving, and I mean, it's not for a family person. If it's somebody that's fresh out of high school, that's looking to grow their finances and things like that, it's lucrative. The money's good. The ability to travel is awesome. And there's a sense of adventure to it too. I mean, you don't know from day to day. You might have a load you pick up in New York City, and you might drop it off at Los Angeles, California.
Wow.
So you'll be on the road for 3 to 4 days, 540 miles a day average, and you'll be on the road. And then once you get to Los Angeles, you may not know where you're going next until your dispatcher gets with you and gives you another load. So there's a sense of mystery and adventure to it, and it's kind of appealing to some people.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you paid hourly, by salary, or commission?
I personally, since I'm a day cab driver, I get paid hourly, and it's fairly lucrative. I'd say the average for a commercial driver is approximately 40 to 80,000. That's a good median range. And a lot of jobs straight out of high school with less than a 2-year degree, you're not going to see that kind of income. But there's hourly pay, and then there's what they call the industry standard for over-the-road trucking is what they call cents per miles, or CPM. And that averages from 35 cents a mile up to $1.25 a mile with these bigger carriers. You'll see on average 50 cents a mile is probably the going rate, and you figure that out by 540 miles a day. That's about the maximum you can get in a 10-hour day with traffic and things like that. Figure that, and you're looking at probably somewhere around 5 to 6 days a week. You're looking at a paycheck of around $1,500 to $1,800, somewhere in that range, for a job that only took 3 weeks of actual training. But the cents per mile is the average. With over-the-road trucking, you, as a owner-operator, it's much more lucrative than that. But you also have the small business side of things where you're doing the maintenance on the truck, you're carrying the insurance. So there's extra cost with that extra income.
Right. So you would have to have good budget skills and kind of know
That's where a business mentality and a business background, or classes like business management, things like that, would really come in handy.
And so here's a little bit of a different question. What are your hobbies?
I'm a gearhead. I enjoy working on and restoring classic cars, repairing cars for friends, that type of thing. I'm into motorsports, like racing, things like that. I really enjoy. So it was kind of a natural step for me to get into an industry where I do a lot of driving. I'm mechanically inclined. If something breaks on a truck, I can fix it.
Mhm.
So it was a natural, kind of a natural transition.
Why did you choose this career?
Initially, I didn't. I have multiple members of my family that are truckers. My dad was for many years. My uncle runs a dump trucking business. You would think that that would be the logical thing, but straight out of high school, I went into manufacturing. I did that for 4 or 5 years. In my mid 20s, I ran a load for a friend of mine that it was with a pickup truck and a trailer. And that was when it finally clicked. It was an over the road trip where I was doing multiple miles. And I was like, this is kind of fun. I think I could do this for a living. And it's ironic that I came to that conclusion having people around me in the
Mhm.
trucking industry, and it never even was something that I considered until that point. But it was just like I said, a natural transition with my talent for working on things and my joy for driving. So
And so, does your job seem exciting to you?
at times there's times when you're in a traffic jam and things like that where it gets kind of boring. I mean, there's hours and hours of driving on the road, but I spice it up with ebooks and like language. I've gotten semi fluent in Spanish. There's different apps you can use on your phone to kind of pass the dull times.
Mhm.
But then there's the times when you're driving down the road and you come around a curve and it's just a wide open, beautiful landscape that you just didn't expect, or what's around the next curve. Like I got to see the Statue of Liberty, the Arch in St. Louis, things that I would never actually get to see on my own, where it would be a little more difficult. I'm getting paid to do these things, so
Wow.
there is that excitement. I mean, if you like traveling, it's a good match.
Yeah. Wow. That does sound exciting. Did you see yourself doing this as a child? What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Initially, I wanted to be an airplane pilot. There was a cartoon series that I was asphyxiated on as a young kid, and I initially wanted to be an airplane pilot. It's kind of ironic. My current terminal that I work out of is right next to a municipal airport, so who knows? There may be flying lessons in the future. It's not something I would want to do as a career, but it'd be a neat hobby to get into now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's the most satisfying thing to you about your career?
Honestly, if you think about it, these devices that we're talking on right now, and most of our general commodities, how do you think they got to the stores? How do you think they got to shelves to
Hmm.
be sold? How do you think they got to your pantry?
Hmm.
Transportation. And at some point, every item that you touch has been on a semi truck tractor trailer combo.
Yep.
So it's satisfying thinking that I'm just a small cog that's made all this happen, a small part in making that.
Yeah.
Also, like I've mentioned, the financial benefits of this industry are are they're out there. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made for somebody that has a drive and determination to work and a business sense to kind of get their own small business rolling. There's a lot of opportunities to make some really good money.
Yeah. America is amazing. Like you mentioned, you're a part, it's like you're a part of a bigger picture. Everybody is, whether they're in the manufacturing, you're picking up and delivering those things. And then me as a homeschool mom and just a mother, I'm going to the store to pick those things up. So it all just it has to keep flowing. So without truck drivers, we're not going to get them to the store. So it's just this big circle. And America amazes me how, especially during COVID, there was that scare a little bit there in the beginning in spring where things were slowing down. We couldn't find our toilet paper,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we've gained speed again, and it's just right back to normal. I mean, I can get on my Walmart app and pick from all the varieties of toilet paper again. So
right. This is
yeah,
this is kind of an unappreciated
yeah,
industry in the fact that when you really stop and think about it, if there were no truckers, if they just shut down,
yeah.
can you imagine the mess that we would be in?
I don't even want to think about it, honestly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
it's it's an astounding thought to think. It's unthinkable.
Hmm.
But if you really think about it, next time you're by a semi, just kind of think, wow,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a big responsibility. It's a very demanding and grueling job, but for the right people, it's very beneficial too.
Yes. Are there a lot of openings in your career field? And if not so now, do you think there will be in the future?
By 2028, it is projected that there's going to be a need for up to 200,000 more truckers than are currently employed.
Wow.
Um, right now, there's a deficit of about 60,000 jobs across the nation that need filled. There's always a demand for products to be transported. And with that, you've got to have somebody driving
Hmm.
and operating these rigs. It's not something that you can really automate easily.
Hmm.
I mean, it's an 80-foot long piece of equipment, and it takes special certifications to be able to maneuver these things. If you would have told me 6 months before I started into this career that I would be able to parallel park a semi, it would have I would have laughed at you. But the things that are entailed with this job, it's definitely tedious, but honestly, it's something that's really rewarding too.
Yes. And with truck driving, unlike other careers we're starting to talk about, computer intelligence and things like that that can take over certain jobs. With truck driving, I don't really foresee that happening because, I mean, we don't have cars and trucks that can drive themselves. So, as far
Right.
as job security, it's pretty secure.
Yeah, I would expect, I mean, you're seeing automated cars and things like that. Even if they do automate truck driving, it would only be to the extent that once a actual human driver or operator gets it on the interstate and going in a straight line, he could push a button and say, okay, we're on autopilot. But when you get into some of these terminals, you're talking inches, I
Hmm.
mean, feet to inches of maneuvering space to back something that's 80 feet long by 12 feet wide into. And I don't see a computer having the ability with any kind of sensor to be able to back a trailer into a dock that's 3 inches wide.
Yeah.
So I honestly think that yes, you will see some automation in the industry, but I don't see it being something that takes over as a whole. So I think at least for the next 20 years, we are very safe in this industry.
Are there any pros or cons that we have not talked about thus far?
Pros, like I've mentioned multiple times, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry. There's the ability to travel. There's just multiple things that make this a good fit for me and other individuals that are kind of like-minded. If you're a business-minded person, and you can actually make some money. As far as cons, there is the other side of the coin. I mean, you're traveling.
Hmm.
You're not home. You're not seeing family a whole lot, especially with a mega carrier. You're going to be gone 2 to 3 weeks out of a month, and with that, I mean, you've got homesickness. There's actually a pretty high rate of driver depression and things because of being away on the road so long. And I think in general, the biggest con would be being away. Honestly, there's the fact that you have to sleep. You sleep in your semi if you're an over the road driver, which
Hmm.
I'm not currently, but you're away from home, out of your own bed. So, like I said, that's basically the only con I've found has been that you're away. If you're somebody that doesn't have a good home life, or you're an individual that just doesn't really care to be a people person, it's a great fit in that aspect. But for the majority of us, it's something that you've got to kind of deal with and grow with. It
Yeah.
takes some getting used to.
Yeah, so it would be a good occupation for those that, like you mentioned, are out of high school or are single, don't have family. Um, Not meaning they won't ever, but it would be something to get into before they decided to start a family or something along
Right.
the lines of that. And
Yeah,
then,
it's something where the money is good enough to outweigh the cons. And if you're somebody that's business minded and you can get past that,
Mhm.
it's a good fit. There's an opportunity to build a large nest egg because you're over the road. It's one of those weird jobs where you have basically no expenses. I mean, your lodging's paid because you're sleeping in the truck.
Mhm.
And most of the time, when you fuel up at truck stops and things, they have perks and benefits that will get a driver a hot shower for basically for free. And his necessities. I mean, you have meals over the road and things like that. It's definitely something that is for somebody that's wanting to build a nest egg or a legacy, or in general make a large amount of cash in a short amount of time. Because with being over the road, you have free lodging because you're sleeping in the semi. You have free free commodities, and there's a lot of different tools for drivers that are made to make this an easier job. So there's an opportunity to set a lot of cash back if you're smart enough to do it, because your funds, your operating costs over the road are so low. So
Yeah.
yes, if you have the mindset to save money, it's a very, very lucrative industry.
And I'm thinking right now, if they were to start out younger and then you said work into being a owner operator, if they did that because they're getting a little bit older, maybe thinking about having that family and stuff. When you're an owner operator, you set your own hours, or how does that
Once
work?
Yes, once you're an owner operator, you can pretty well, if you get one truck and you get it over the road, your pay per mile goes up to $5 to $8 per mile. I
Oh
mean, it's
wow.
very lucrative as an owner operator. I mean, you're talking 540-ish miles a day. At that rate, I mean, the money coming in is definitely there. And once you get your own truck, you can actually set your hours, or you can put somebody else in that truck, buy one truck and then turn
Okay.
it into two trucks, three trucks, four trucks, so on, and have people working for you. And you get to sit at home and spend time with the wife and kids that you've decided to
Hmm.
have a family and things like that later. I mean, 5 to 10 years over the road with a mega carrier, or actually, honestly, if you get on with a mega carrier, get your experience, go to a smaller company within a year to 2 years, they pay better, and you're more apt to learn things that will help you be an owner operator. And
Yeah.
in general, it's just beneficial to get into your own truck as quickly as you can.
Very good. Yeah. That answered a lot of questions I had on that one. So starting young would be the ideal to start and then build it up. Last question would be, do you have any encouragement for those seeking this type of position or career?
If you are thinking of being somebody that wants to travel, there's multiple YouTubers out there that actually drive a semi, and they record from different locations throughout the US, and people don't really even know that that's their occupation. They're a truck driver. They just see that this person gets to travel a ton. So, I mean, from that aspect, with somebody young, it's definitely a means to justify an ends to justify a means. But if you're looking to get into this industry and you think you would like to drive, and you want to make some money and you be a business owner, this is definitely an option that a lot of people don't consider. And there's always going to be a need for a truck and trailer to haul anything.
Hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Kenny, for taking some time out today to answer some questions that we have. If anybody has any questions we didn't cover today, just get those to me. You can comment or you can message me, and I'll make sure I get those to Kenny and we'll get those answered for you. Thanks so much, Kenny.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.